All right, everybody. I wanted to just clarify what we discussed in class today, which in regards to order of operations with all integers, or I'm sorry, with all rational numbers. And then there was one problem on here that didn't really get a chance to talk about, so I want to make sure that you're fully aware of it and what the symbol means. So first thing is that I want you to look at is I want us to look down here at question 12. So if you can look at question 12 on your review, question 12 has this negative sign right in front of the parentheses, the -2. What that means here, what this negative sign right here means is it really stands for -1, or you might want to go ahead and it stands for the opposite. So there's an kind of an imaginary 1 that's right in front of that. So it's technically -1 times -2 is what it is. Now we know -1 times -2 is going to be a +2. So we're comparing 2, is that greater than, less than, or equal to the absolute value of -3 times, it's butted up next to the -1 that's there. So if you see a negative in front of a parentheses, it really means -1 times whatever's in the parentheses. Or we can look at it as the opposite. So if we have here the opposite of -2, that is 2. So if you notice, you're getting the same thing. -1 times -2 is +2, or the opposite of -2. So needed to talk about that you might see a negative in front, and somebody might think, oh, is that subtraction or is it a negative? So that's really a negative saying the opposite. So we have that. The other thing that I wanted to do is just to make sure that you fully are aware of those steps that we had, which was when we're doing orders of operations with all rational numbers. The first one was convert all subtraction signs into subtraction or addition. So subtraction, make it addition. Second was, we have here on our notes from today, we have the second is to perform one operation at a time. And then the third is convert to like form. So if you have a fraction, get your fraction to a decimal. If you have a decimal, get your decimal to a fraction. Whichever way you feel more comfortable doing. So I just wanted to do one more problem like this just so you're comfortable with that. So the problem I'm going to give you is -15 3/10. Make sure that that's coming out. So we have -15 3/10. And what I want to do to that is I want to add 6 2/5. So plus 6 2/5. And then I want to subtract 8 1/3. Okay, so I am adding and subtracting all kinds of different rational numbers here. So the very first thing we have here is I want to turn all subtraction signs into addition signs. So let's go ahead and do that. So right now I'm going to go -15.3 plus 6 2/5 plus, I'm going to change this subtraction into an addition, and then I'm going to make this 8 1/3 -8 1/3. Okay, that's what we have right now. So now I've done the first part. Now let's go ahead and perform one operation at a time. So we'll go ahead and do that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put addition and addition. Those are my two operations. I'll underline my first addition. So I'm going to work left to right. So I'm going to do -15.3 plus 6 2/5. Now, I need to get those to be the same form. Right now I have decimals and I have fractions. It's up to you what you prefer. Okay. In this case, I'm going to convert 2/5 into a decimal. So I do top dog in the house, 2 divided by 5, and I get an answer of 4/10. So I'm just going to rewrite it here. I have -15.3 plus 6.4 plus -8 1/3. So I'm going to do that part right there. Negative 15.3, and I'm going to add 6.4. So when I add those together, I am adding unlike signs. So when you add unlike signs, you really subtract. So negative 15.3 minus 6.4. So I'm going to have my T-chart. And so right here, I'm going to go 15.3 minus 6.4. I will borrow. This becomes a 9. Bring my decimal down. This right here is a 4. That becomes an 8, and that's going to be a 0. So my digits are 8.9. But remember, we take the sign of the larger absolute value, or whichever number is greater, and then assign or put that sign, take that sign down to our next part of our problem. So we have negative 8.9 plus negative 8 1/3. All right, so what I can do now is I can convert my decimals to fractions or fractions to decimals. If you have a number that is a repeating decimal, so 0.3333 like this one, you can either round to the thousandth place, but you can also convert this decimal into a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to write this as negative 8 9/10 plus negative 8 1/3 right there. So what I have now is I'm going to add these together. I'm adding like signs so that the answer we know is going to be negative. So I'm going to take my 9/10, my negative 8 9/10, and I'm going to add to that my negative 8 1/3. I'm going to find an LCD, which is 30. I do this times 3 to get 30, so I do 9 times 3 to get 27. 3 times 10 is 30, so 1 times 10 is 10. And so I add these up, and I get 37 over 30. And 8 plus 8 is 16. So my answer is negative 16 37/30. So we have negative 16 37/30. Or I can simplify that even more if I wanted to. And because this will be okay because this is the most simplified improper fraction, but I can actually 30 goes into 37 one time, so this equals negative 17 because I can add a whole, and I have what's left over is 7/30. So that is my answer. So the big thing is I want you to, that can help you, is to turn all subtraction signs into addition. Do that. We perform one operation at a time, and then we convert to all the like forms. You can see that up here, and I originally did the fraction into decimal, and then down here I did a decimal into fraction. If the problem is presented only with fractions, then I want the answer in fractions. If it's only in decimals, I want the answer in decimals. But if it's both of them, it's kind of viewer's choice. It's whichever one you prefer to do. So I wanted to go over another example to make sure that you are comfortable doing this on the remaining problems that are here on your review. And one last thing I want to do is please make sure that in your notes, I believe, yes, they were right here. We had the difference between negative 3 without the parentheses squared. Remember, that means 3 squared, or 3 times itself, which is 9, and then you attach the negative to it. And that's different than over here when you have the negative 3 squared with the parentheses. You are squaring both the negative and the 3, so that's negative 3 times negative 3, which is 9. So remember, there's a difference between that. You're on opposite sides of the on the number line. So hope that helps, and have a great weekend. And the review is due on Monday. Thank you very much.